Hello and welcome to this special program. We're celebrating Black History Month. My name is Mark Crory. I'm the Executive Director for Littleton Community TV. And I'm with Mr. George Sanders, Littleton resident and Army veteran and all-around good guy, political activist, I guess you could add that to his title. A brother in Christ, that's another thing we can add to our repertoire here. But we're here to talk about Black History Month, and just we're recording this the last week in February, so you'll probably be watching this in March, but that's okay. We're going to be talking about a whole different topics. We've done 2 of these shows before. It's been several years since we've gotten together and been able to talk again, just to kind of update how things are going with race relations and with just things in America these days, and especially here in Littleton, locally. But so for some of you who don't know the history of how we got Black History Month, I just want to give you a little background. Basically, the genesis of this comes from a man named Dr. Carter Woodson. And Dr. Carter was a Harvard graduate. He was the son of former slaves. And he started an association called the Association for the Studies of Negro Life in 1915. And a year later, he published a journal that was called the Journal of Negro History. It's now known as the Journal of African American History. And the first annual Negro History Week was in 1926 to coincide with the birthdays of both Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. So they had it the second week in February. Time went on with the civil rights movement in the 1960s. More and more African Americans were getting interested in the history of their people and their heritage. So finally in 1976, President Gerald Ford officially made February, the entire month of February, Black History Month. So it's a month that we look at the diversity of cultures, especially, and just focusing on the African American culture and the rich history they have here. Unfortunately, a lot of it started as slaves in the slavery thing, but even during that time, there were free people that were fighting for the causes of African Americans here in the country. And so, George, with that as a background, what kind of things do you do just to celebrate this month?
Well, I guess there isn't a whole lot that we do for my family, rather, do for February. Of course, we have the school break, which is last week, was in February there. Well, we just sort of kind of being thankful that we're in a safe society with regards to other societies around the world and what's going on and what's happening in the world. And that just be thankful that, we're recognized because from the beginning of the start of this nation, blacks has contributed to the building of this nation and served with this nation, going back to the Revolutionary War. And we have a lot of great scholars that are black that has contributed to this nation as a whole. And, we are thankful that they are being recognized now. So we talk a little bit about, who did what in the day, with regards to black history. And it goes to show that at one point they had the original black soldiers. They were really called the Buffalo Soldiers. That's the name that they was giving them, and they fought against the Indians. So you had 2 calories. I think it was the 24th and the 9th calorie. They sent them out west, and they was out there in that hot sun and desert like, and they fought, until the time that they was recognized that they're soldiers, like everybody else, the white soldiers. Well, primarily they was commanded by whites as the leaders, but it's something that I'm proud of who I am, and I'm proud of the things that black people have achieved in this nation, and very thankful that we are recognized now, in the history books. Once upon a time, you had no history about what blacks had contributed to in this country, and the Buffalo Soldiers had that name, and they sort of kind of carried on to many years. Actually, I knew one individual. He got in on the tail end of the Buffalo Soldiers. He lived here in Massachusetts. He was a transplant up here, but he stayed in Shirley.
Wow.
And he's deceased now. And when I came into the service in 1962, they said that the armed forces was integrated, but the armed forces was not completely integrated, because the active duty, yes, but as far as the reserve went, no. I joined at a all white reserve unit, and was told after I had joined that I had to travel 30 miles to a reserve unit where that I would be assigned, and it was an all black reserve unit that was commanded by black, and actually the gentleman that was the commander, his brother was actually my agriculture teacher. So I joined an all black. Actually, it was the last all black unit that was left in the Department of Defense. Of course, it's been deactivated now. And I did a little tracing back a few months ago just to see where it was at. Excuse me. And it was deactivated and reactivated in California, but it's not a black unit. It's a regular reserve unit, but it carries the number, which was the 307 Smoke Generator Company that I initially joined, and came back and decided that I was wanting to go active, and I went back active duty and stayed active duty till I retired.
Let's talk a little bit about today. The 60s were kind of a revolutionary time period where civil rights movements, because I was born in 65, so I don't remember much of the 60s. But of course, I've seen shows and read things about it, the time period. But we still had a country. Yes, African Americans were free, but they weren't treated as equals. And for someone today, I think even young kids today, to imagine that a time in their parents' life where kids couldn't go to the same school, or you couldn't drink out of the same water fountain, or like Rosa Parks, who was told to get out of the seat because somebody else wanted to take it from her. Do you think that we're past that?
Well, that's a question that I would say today we can say that we would hope that we've passed that. I personally don't think that we are completely past that. A lot of things have changed because there's been generations that came along that has helped change a lot of things. And cause things to perpetuate to a point that we see a difference in some of the things that happen now. We can drink from any water fountain. We can go into any restaurant for the most part and be served. And instead of you as a black saying, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, and so forth, you hear whites say that to the patrons. And a big difference has taken place in the South. And the deeper you get into the South, there's changes, but there's still a lot of stuff that's going on that was of the days of yesterdays. And that, as we come north, you have the tendency to think that, the North is all this and that. Well, let me tell you, the North isn't always this and that. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in the North here that sort of kind of shake your head and say, I don't recall that happening in the South. I know when I was at Devon's there was a lot of racial. I mean, back in the 60s and 70s, there was a lot of race relation training that was going on. That people, I remember when we was in Maryland, we had this individual that was an officer, and we was having race relation training there, and we was just talking about the slang of the language that is being talked about through conversation people are having and so forth and so on. And he was from Alabama, and basic, he was someone that was still in the closet when it came to terminology and stuff that was being used by people in conversation. Even they threw out a few of the slang words and stuff that they use, and he was like, I have no idea, what that is. And it was like, that's a fine looking chick going there. What is a chick? Oh, that's a nice looking hammer there. What is the hammer? Going on. So he was completely ignorant to the point of the slang language that was going on, and and we clued him in that the term was fine. Hammer mean that chick is there, and you can nail her, So, but a lot of the stuff that happened back in the 60s, you don't rightfully see a lot of that going on now, but you still got people that embedded with some of the stuff that happened, and you're not going to per se change their mind to a certain extent. And those that's been educated know well now that that was not true, because they used to say black people had a monkey tail, and stuff like that, and it was like that's not true, and people just was
Ignorant, I guess
ignorant
you could say.
in the fact that they just wanted to keep something going. And I think in most cases, they knew that wasn't true. But, just to perpetuate that along and saying that, it's being said this and said that, and it was always said, we used to have whites that used to have to come through the black area, and they was on the street out there that they was on the other end, and we picked up and came back this way with the black, and they used to say, "You nigger," and he used to say, "You cracker," so probably want a cracker, probably want a cracker, kids just playing around, they saying things that we saying things to them, but when you became older and understood and was educated, anybody can be called a nigger. It doesn't mean that because you're black you're a nigger. It's just that some things people was ignorant about, and they just said whatever they thought that was carried over, and this was what they was taught. A lot of the stuff was they was taught, and it was like, I remember we stopped in Georgia one time, and we was asking for some direction, and the guy says, "You niggas better get on out of here," you know. So naturally, we just drove on out, you know, and didn't say anything back to them, you know, since they didn't want to help us with any information. But you know, I grew up in South Carolina, and I have to tell you, it's not everywhere in the South you was confronted with what was going on in that time, because where I grew up at, as I said, we had those kids. That's kids are going to be kids, irregardless. But we had a lot of good citizens in the town of Pendleton, South Carolina, and they really looked out for people.
You told me on our last show that we were together that you had a boss that was one of those good ones, you know, that gave you a chance and treated you like a young man, you know, just as a young man, not as anything really separated or different.
And the big thing about Pendleton was that we had pretty much it was a typical rectangle, but we used to say up on the square. You know, the town was sort of kind of built like a rectangle. The center of the town was, and we had a lot of businesses that was in there. We had this post office in there that it like actually Pendleton has the first farmers hall that was built in America. And it's a miniature replica of the White House with the long white pillars there. And the thing that we had, because I didn't know, you know, at that time, it was many years later. I had left Pendleton when I come to find out. But my boss, as you pointed out to, he was a master mason. And all those business people around there, all of them, they was master masons. And I never knew, but I knew that the two main grocery stores that we had there, they always run a credit tab for the blacks that was in Pendleton there. They get paid on Friday, they come up, they pay off on the tab, and then they buy more groceries and, you know, run it through the week, and come Friday again, it's the same thing, just repetition of that. So they really looked out for feeding people in Pendleton, and they delivered. They delivered to the homes and stuff of people that weren't able to, you know, carry the groceries and stuff like that. So, you know, I'm very thankful for what Pendleton showed me about life and the people that was there. They really, truly was some fine people, and I admire the things that they done and how they treated people in Pendleton.
As you know, I went down to near there not too long ago, down to Anderson, and
14 miles away. Actually, it's less than that now.
yeah. And beautiful area. I enjoyed it. But you know, I grew up in Littleton. You know, my parents were from Littleton. And growing up in town, there weren't many African American or black people here. I remember maybe one or two growing up. That's it. And they were all, you know, all the neighboring towns, there were no black people. The only place they were on Fort Devens, and they went to Air High School.
Right.
So my exposure was only what I heard on TV or what I might have heard from others. You know, I didn't really have a lot of exposure. So, but that didn't mean I didn't learn, you know, things that that I needed to repent of later, you know what I mean? But let's look at Littleton today. I think Littleton is a much more diverse community than it ever has been, with just over 10,000 people. And maybe there's not as many blacks in town, but there are a lot of other nationalities, and it's quite, I think, a pretty diverse community today. Would you say that race relations always? I mean, they're not always black and white. It's Asian or any other kind of nationality.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing about race relation is that everybody want to be treated with dignity and respect. It just gets down to that simple. Is recognizing and treating people like you would want to be treated. And sometimes I think people forget about how they would like to be treated, so they don't treat others the way they would like to be treated. And usually when you have that happens, usually things don't always go well. And people find later that maybe I shouldn't have said that. I remember a gentleman was talking about someone had said he was a congressman, a House of Representative, had said about Congressman Lewis, and the guy called the young fella aside and he told him, he says, listen, I think you owe the gentleman an apology. He said, and if I was you, he said, I would go and apologize to him because I think that's the right thing for you to do. He said the young man went and he apologized to Lewis, and Lewis says, no problem. We all live and learn. And that was the end of it.
That was the end of it, yeah.
So, sometimes there's a simple way of doing things, and it doesn't have to get blown out of proportion. Yeah. Just, realize that, would that have made me feel this way or that way, if that had been said to me or whatever. And you sometimes got to go back and think that, you could have did that better. Because I always said, no matter where we at, my family and I, we all try to do what's right. And we don't bother nobody. We take care and do what we need to do and try to be friends to people that, want to be friends. But I know that we always can be better than that.
Right.
We always can be better
Yeah,
than
we should
that.
all strive for that. And you had mentioned treating others the way you want to be treated. That's the golden rule, which many faiths have some version of that in their doctrines, What do you think about the media and their role in, I don't know why they would do it, but it seems to me that they like to perpetuate hatred. Like they like to stir up things and make things always, like if you watch the news on a regular basis, you're going to have hatred towards somebody different because it seems like they build that up.
Well, I want to try to look at two news channels. I look at Channel 5 a little bit there, and I usually catch the ABC Even News. I think it gives you perhaps maybe a clear cut of what's going on versus some of the other stuff. I'll tell you what I think about the media. The media is in the business of making money, and they need to tell a story. They always says we don't do old news. Well, they do a lot of old news. So they like to keep things stirred up. I guess the best thing that ever happened in this country was that, as far as television go, is that you get the true picture of what's being said and what's done is on C-SPAN. They just throw the cameras in and put the mics in, and you hear what's being said. There's no altering, tapering, this, altering the things that's being said, this or that, cutting out or not reporting, telling you this. They just
That's
let
real
it fly.
reality TV.
Yeah, they just let it fly. So, but as far as the media goes, the media always has to perpetuate and keep something going. They need to keep reporting on something, and sometimes they put their own takes on it, to the left, to the right, and the thing is that a lot of people believe what they say, and you have to really take in consideration what they're about. They're about making money, and they need to tell a story. I looked at the video of Secretary Collins, who's the VA secretary now, and he did this video. He says, "I'm going to give it to you straight." He said, "Listen, this ain't the media doing this. I'm giving it straight. I'm telling you exactly what's what here." He said, because the media, they gotta tell a story. They're not going to give it to you truthfully as to what I'm saying exactly. They're going to put their take on it, add something in, take something out, and you don't get the true picture of exactly what I'm saying. That's why I'm doing this video direct to you, so you can see exactly what I'm saying. I'm not going through the media and say, because they like to play games. He said, and I'm not about that.
Right. Let me ask you this. Do you think that today that more people are good and more people want to get along, but because of news, media, whatever, there's this perception out there that there's this huge divide? Or do you actually, when you're out in the real world living, do you get the sense that people just want to be, like you said, be treated the way they want to be treated?
I think for the most part, I think that in this country, yeah, there's a split in this country as far as people go, and it's too bad. I was listening at them last night talking about the budget and how that. I tell you, this state has one House representative that really fights for the people, and that's my governor out of Worcester County there. And I will listen to him, and I always enjoy hearing him speak when he's in the Congress there about, what the Congress is not doing for the people, because we was elected to come here to do for the people, and we are not doing that, So I think that there's
When you say there's a split or a divide, you're talking about liberals and conservatives. You're not talking about a racial divide, right?
I think you probably got a little bit of both. I think that the racial divide here is that there's a tendency sometimes people don't want to see what that particular race is about, and they sort of kind of bury them and don't want to hear what they have to say about what. We all have needs, and our needs are no different than any other cultural needs as far as that go. And we find ourselves, it doesn't matter to me. I don't look at people as being Republican, Democrats, Independent. We get these titles because for whatever reason we want to say we are associated with that. I'm independent. So my thing is that if there's an independent that's doing a good job, I'll vote for him. If there's a Republican doing a good job, I'll vote for him. If there's a Democrat doing a good job, I'll vote for him. My thing is, what are you doing for the people? That's what you're supposed to be. Congress was never intended for people to go down there and make a homestead out of the office. They was to go down there and give back to the nation, to their country. It was like a 2 or 4 years that they would move on. Somebody else would come in and do that. So now you got people down there homesteading. that's in these offices down there, and they get rusted in there, and they don't do what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to be down there working for the people.
Well, they're making a good living now.
Well, they're making more than a good living down there. And the thing that we find is that it takes an uprise in this country of people saying, I ain't going to take it no longer. No more. And then everybody, they up in arms then, and they saying, oh, don't do this. I'm not saying being violent about doing it. I'm just saying people speaking up and say, this isn't right. We're tired of it. You're supposed to be down here fixing things for us, but you're not.
Right.
And some of you are worried about what you're getting. And this is the thing that if you're not going to be there to serve for the people, step away and let somebody else come in that will serve for the people. Right. But you get a lot of people that goes in there, and a lot of people back in the 90s, you had quite a few people that left Congress. I mean, they just got sick of what was going on. We're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. You can't get bills passed. You can't do stuff that need to be done. It's a gem of everything that is being tried.
Well, you said it. You said that you're an independent. You look at what's right? And then you vote your conscience. A lot of people have, like you said, polarized to the point where they're not even going to listen to the other side. And in fact, they've got to the point now when you go to vote, they'll say, you want to vote all Republican? Here, just take this ballot and just check the one. They have the box that says, just check one. It'll vote for all the Republicans or all the Democrats. I don't think that button should be on there, frankly, because I think that is part of the problem. Everybody should be looked at individually.
Right.
Having said that, President Trump comes in and he's been making a lot of waves. And what do you think of his canceling the DEI type programs?
Well, I think, first of all, he came in with the attitude that on day one, I'm going to be the baddest guy in the world. And I'm going to do A, B, C, and D. Okay? And to a certain extent, he came in and he started tearing things apart. One thing I say that I think that he did was that he cut away from being so nasty to the opponent that lost, that he beat him up after the election was over. I noted that he was kind in his words to the vice president that was running against him. And to me, that struck me as that he changed a little bit of his nastiness, which was a good thing. And I admired the remarks that he made towards her. And I think he's in a position that there's nothing wrong with having good people around you and to help you. But I think what he's tending to forget, the people gave a mandate to go there and cut this gridlock loose and provide and do for the American people. They didn't send him down there to dismantle the government as some is doing. Cutting waste, I am for cutting waste 100%. Don't get me wrong. I think when we waste money, that's taxpayers' money. And I have a strong commitment to not wasting taxpayer money, because when I was in a position of millions of dollars, I always protected the government interests with that money. And I think what's happened here now, they got
But you know, but the media, you know, will report that some of these cuts cost people's lives. You know, these are
Oh, yeah.
people. You know, they don't focus on the actual things that aren't like overseas that they're spending money on things that should not be spent on our money, our tax money. But
let
they tend to-
let me say this.
Yeah.
Anytime you cut money away from something that has been committed to, you are affecting lives in some fashion or form, whether it's abroad or where it's here.
Right.
We're affecting people's lives. And that's the thing that we should take in consideration. Cut the waste, but don't cut the need.
Right.
And some things you need to have different eyes to look at it and see whether you cutting the need or you cutting the waste. And I think that Trump got 2 years. His first 2 years. After his first 2 years, he basically, you got another election come up, you don't know what's going to happen. But the first 2 years, he's going to get in. They're fussing about right now that they were talking about how much of the tax structure that he put in place, how much of it that we as people receive. We received like 17% of it. 93% went to the top 1% of the wealth in this country. So they don't want to let these laws expire. But the thing is, we're in such a turmoil right now with what is going on in this country right now. And
Well, let me ask you this, though. Isn't it kind of a catch-22? Because you want the top 1% to succeed in ways because they're the ones who own the businesses that run the factories that, yes, they make the most money. But if they fail, the businesses fail, the people, you know, it's kind of a trickle down.
yeah, it's domino effect.
Yeah, it's a domino effect. What I'm more interested, though, besides the financial aspect, because we're talking about racial relations, is do you feel that Trump is a racist, as people have claimed in some of his policies or his remarks, or do you think that, like, again, like the media or whatever builds incorrectly against him?
Well, if you go back and look at history a little bit there, I mean, Trump-owned family has not spoken nice and kind about him. So, I mean, as close as family is, if they're saying, you know, certain things about him, I've never been that close to know anything that I could say about him in terms of what family is saying about him. As far as him being a racist, you know, Trump is Trump. Let's face it, Mark is Mark.
Yeah, right.
George is George. You know, so he got some ways about him that you're not going to change it. That is Trump. You know, you rather know who the enemy is than not know who the enemy is.
Yeah.
So with Trump tell you, well, that's what I'm gonna do, and I have to give him credit. You know, for the most part, whatever he tell you he's gonna do, that's what he goes after to do. So Trump is more of a realist than anything else. So I don't say put races in there about him in any fashion or form. I mean, yeah, he's white, but that doesn't necessarily make him be a racist because he's white. I just think Trump is Trump.
Now, don't you think that term is used a lot today? If someone has an opinion about anybody, you're labeled a racist.
Yeah.
And it's hard to, first of all, it's hard to defend sometimes because
Well, I don't think you can defend unless a person really truly just comes out and just starts saying A, B, C, D, and E right there in your face,
That's true.
and you sitting there hearing them
Right.
say what exactly what it. Then now you can classify him. Maybe you are so and so, so and so.
Yeah, you have a lot of tendencies of a racist.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I just, it seems like when I hear some of these shows where they've got pros and cons debating an issue, someone will bring up something and immediately says, they get offended and said, you're a racist. And as soon as someone's labeled that, the conversation stops. Everyone, just says, that's it, it's over.
My thing is, why you say I'm a racist? What is it that you're saying that I'm a racist about? I think you need to define, not just arbitrarily use a word and placard and says, this is that, that's this, and this is that, and that's that. No, if you're saying I'm a racist, what is it that you see that I am a racist
That's a
about?
great point. That's a great point. Let me ask you this. As a man, do you think you have an opinion on, you don't have to give me what your opinion is, but do you think you have an opinion on abortion?
Yeah, I think I have an opinion on it.
And if somebody told you, well, you're a man, so you have no right to speak about this, do you think that that's fair?
No, I don't think that's fair, because I think, first and foremost, I think that Almighty God is the master of this universe. And I believe wholeheartedly what he says in the Bible, as the Bible has been translated over hundreds of thousands of years, in telling us what the master said that we should do and what we shouldn't do. I believe that where that they say on abortion is that, to me, what should happen is that there are many ways that things has happened that a person that's carrying a child may end up carrying it full terms. They may have medical difficulties and they have to make a choice between.
I didn't want you to comment on the actual abortion. What my point was going to be was that if a woman said, you're a man, you have no right to talk about that, and you kind of feel like, well, I have an opinion, but just because I'm a man, I can't talk about it. Sometimes in race relations, if a white person wants to speak about an issue, they say, well, you're not black. You can't talk about that. You don't understand this, stay out of it.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. My thing is that anybody can talk about anything. There's no cutoff here that you can't talk about this or talk about that. I think you can talk about anything that you want to talk about. And I think when it comes to any subject matter, if you have any knowledge about it and want to speak about it, I think you should have the right to speak about it. And you're very right in the sense that a lot of time it was said that you don't know what it is to be black. Well, no, I don't know what it is to be white. But the truth of the matter is, it's not so much the pigment of the skin, it's what comes out of your mouth. Because you can't put back what comes out. Mm-hmm. And a lot of time people speak being ignorant about subject matters and not knowing what they're talking about. Get your facts, do some study and research before you start spilling out something and saying this or that and don't know exactly what you're talking about. So I know all too well that when there was things saying, well, you don't know what it is to be black. Well, that's true because she's not black. But that doesn't mean that I don't understand the conditions in the environment that this person may have lived through or went through. I may not understand it totally because I didn't experience that, but I have knowledge of what that was lacked. And that's where I can speak from and say that, this was wrong that they did this like this. They should have thought more of the people than they did, which they didn't. So, there's things that if you look at it in certain aspects, you can learn a lot. I always tell people it's better to have a attentive ear than a waggish tongue. Because you can learn a lot by just listening to what people say.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this question, George, and this is a tough one, I think. Okay, let's say I want to hold you responsible for all the black crime that has been committed in the last 100 years, by black people, and I expect that, you should have to pay me for the trouble that has been caused by all the black crime that has gone on and committed by black people. And you'd say, I would assume, that's crazy. That had nothing to do with me. I'm not one of those people who committed those crimes. Why would I have to pay for the crimes just because I'm black? And I think you know where I'm going. I often hear that black people want white people to somehow pay for slavery and retribution and things that happened, had nothing to do with me, and not even probably my ancestors. Just because we're white, I wasn't ancestors with the people who had slaves here in the country. But do you think it's fair to ask that of white people when I wouldn't ask that of you? I mean, you're your own man. I hold you responsible just for your own actions, not for the actions of, certainly not a race.
Well, to answer that question, I think you have to look at using hindsight with foresight. And what I mean about that is that you cannot go back in time and relive what happened then and to try to bring it forward to the current situation and say that these people are liable because that happened with those people back when. Is what happened, it happened. The only thing that I find that I say, in which I think there was a place in Tennessee that I think that happened. They had a community that was a black community of all business and so forth and so forth and so on, and the white taking it. And my recollection was that they went back and they was willing, of course, all those business and things was not that. They was very rich black people that owned that. They went back, and what they asked for, they asked that this land that you took from us, we want it back. And I believe that.
And do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with that they took that land, the city had taken that land, and they did something there. They didn't want it, and they tore it down and so forth. And they said, we want it back. We want the land back.
That makes sense. I mean, that makes sense.
But to get back to the point of saying where people think that, because people did certain things that we wanted to hold you liable for that, and that we think that you should in turn give us money for the damage that was done. No, I totally disagree with that, because I think that, for one, what's happened in the past, you have to let it be history. We should take that and learn from that. And when I say learn from it, I'm saying learn with a curve that whatever they did and how they did it, was that right? As we look at it today, was that right to do it like that? And if you say, yes, that was right, but that was wrong. So we should learn, excuse me, we should learn from the behavior of human beings. Sometime, who knows what caused them to say what they did then and there. They could have been an argument that they was in before. You just don't know what transpired.
Right.
So how do you go back and justify and say, y'all lie, but when I wasn't even born then, had nothing to do with it. And if you didn't take care of it then, what make you think you should take care of it now?
Right. That's a fair answer. One last question, I guess, for you to consider. When you think about your voting, you said as an independent, you vote for who you think is the best candidate. Do you think that should go for jobs, positions, whatever? It's like, almost like The Masked Singer, that show that everyone's wearing masks, you don't know what they look like, you just hear their voice. And the best singer goes on the next week.
Well, I think the thing that you have to take in consideration, first and foremost, I think that if you're going to be fair and just in whatever it is, you have to establish that criteria. And that criteria is that when you establish that, all that apply, if they qualify, they get an equal shot as to what it is. Now, there's always come to a point that elimination. What do you do to eliminate? What is the criteria that you establish to do the elimination? And you have to put it in the same category, and you have to weed out the best person. And the thing is, it has to be done by people that have nothing to gain or to lose.
Now, there are people who say, because of systemic racism, that if you had 100 people who needed to be hired, and if you hired the best candidates, 100 of them would be white, if the people hiring were white, because of systemic racism or systematic racism. I forget if it's systemic or systemic, I think is the word I'm looking for. Now, do you agree that would be the case, that people would, because it's so deep-rooted in the country, because that's what we're being told, at least some media in some schools and universities teach that it's so ingrained in the culture that you can't, without having programs in place where you have to hire a certain percentage of different ethnicities, because we don't have that fairness. People don't hire the best candidate.
That's a tough question to answer, because there's so many missing pieces to that. We're never going to, I think, look at things from a perspective that all things are equal.
Yeah. Not this side of heaven, anyway.
And having said that, we don't know if all things are equal, and we know there's not. We have to come up, as they say, the best constitution we have is the one that we have now until we get one that's better. That means a whole lot of work has to be done to get one that's better. And I think the same thing applies when it comes up and says that, well, the best 100 applicants would be white, and the hiring of the ones that are white, and what was the criteria, and were there others, and why didn't they qualify, since we said that all the white came up to be.
Well, I was saying that because whites were hiring.
I get what you're saying, because the white was hiring, but the same thing. I'm saying as a white, what was it that eliminated others, that they were not in here with this 100 that we could select from? What was it that eliminated them? And it all goes to Mark. You got to search, and you got to search, and you got to put something together, and you got to put a criteria, and you have to have more than two eyes to look at and see, is this just and fair? The criteria that you put up there, and if we come up to a point where that we need to select this 100, how do we do it? How do we do it that is fair and just, that let that person and that person and that person, feel that how they did it, it was just and fair. If you don't come up with how you apply this, then you can come to a lot of things and say the conclusion was based on, because they were all white. And because they hired, because they said that was the best 100 that they had. Now, did we get to look at the prereqs that they had to be confronted with? No, we didn't. So, you can say whatever you want to say.
Right.
Doesn't mean that that's what it was.
Right.
So I think
that's an interesting perspective. Let me take you one more question, and then I know I said the last one was going to be one, but I'm sorry. I could go on all day, obviously, about this. But let's say from the last show that we did, we had one of those thermometers that you fill up that give you your goal. Up here, at the top is the society I think we all want, loving your neighbor as yourself. And let's say we were down here the last time we taped. Are we closer to the goal today, or have we stayed the same, or are we worse?
Well, I think if you look at hindsight, I think that we got to be better off than we were previously. I think there's always improvement. I think we don't go backwards in the sense that things are just tumbling back down the hill. I think that we're climbing up the hill. I think that we're doing things better. I think we're looking at things in different perspectives. I think that we're being educated in a sense that we have the opportunity to look at things better than we did before, because we have more input into it now. We may have more participation into it now, so we're getting a lot of feedback now, and we're understanding what is being fed back to us. So we understand better than we did before. That should be the goal, that we're moving in that direction. So I think that as we look at society as a whole here today, with the technology that we have today, we're doing things better than we were doing 10 years ago, a decade ago, So I think we're moving up. Some people may say, no, well, we ain't getting this, we ain't getting that. Well, you can't always have everything. But look at the things that we do have. Be appreciative of the things that we do have.
Is life better for you, George Sanders, in 2025 than it was? And I'm talking about the social aspect, the how you feel as a black man living in America.
Well, I always felt that America was one of the, which I always use that when I do writing, is one of the greatest nation upon nations. And I've always felt that my contribution to this nation of what I thought that was the right thing to do, I did it. And I feel good about what I've accomplished. If I had to do it over again, no, I wouldn't change what I've done. And I feel that we as a people, and when I say we as a people, I mean we as a people, we're better off today than we were years ago as a whole.
Yeah.
Because things changed.
Yeah.
And they changed for the better.
Yeah. Amen.
Although we may not have gotten all that we wanted, but there was changes that was for the better.
I agree. Well, I think we'll have to wrap up for this year's edition of this show, Black History Month, celebrating it, talking about it. Didn't get as much into the celebration part as more of the, I think it's important to have conversations and dialogues about things and take a snapshot of where we are. And who knows, someone may watch these shows years from now and say, wow, they're talking about that back then, or whatever they say. But I want to thank you for agreeing to be on the show again. And I always enjoy our chats and our talks, and you're a good man, and I enjoy knowing you.
Well, I thank you very much, Mark, for that. It's always a pleasure with me to talk to people and understand people and listen to their viewpoints and, just have life as you would like to see it being something that, we're only on this earth for a short period of time. And, it does no good for us to not to like and want to be friends and to do things, because in a moment you could be in the history of the past. But life is short, and we must always remember that, because we don't control it.
Right.
We only try to live it the best that we know how.
Right. Teach us to count our days. Because, well, thanks again, George. And keep on doing what you're doing. Thank you for watching this special Celebrating Black History Month show. Again, this is 2025's edition. And who knows, maybe we'll be back next year. Or we'll wait a couple of years. Who knows? If we went on any more, we might be in the next year already. But so you can have a great day. Enjoy the rest of the month, and take care of yourself.